There are moments in life when everything feels too heavy, when your heart is tired, your mind is overwhelmed, and your soul feels like it's slipping. You reach a point where giving up seems easier than holding on. But what if, right before that breaking point, something unseen happened? What if, before you gave up, Allah reached out to your soul in a way you didn't even realize? This is not coincidence, this is not luck, this is divine mercy, subtle, powerful, and perfectly timed. There comes a moment in a person's life when everything feels like it is collapsing at once. The weight becomes unbearable, the heart feels tight, and the mind is filled with questions that seem to have no answers. You try to stay strong, you remind yourself to be patient, but the pain keeps returning in waves. It is in this very moment, when you feel like you are breaking, that something deeply powerful is happening, even if you cannot see it. What feels like distance from Allah is often the beginning of a deeper closeness. When your strength fades, your dependence increases. When your plans fall apart, your reliance shifts. And when you realize that nothing in this world can truly hold you together, your soul begins to turn, sincerely and completely, towards the one who can. The breaking point is not a sign that you have been forgotten. It is not a sign that your doers are unheard. Rather, it is a moment carefully designed to bring your heart back to its true source. Because sometimes when life is comfortable, we forget. We become distracted. We rely on people, on status, on stability, thinking these things will carry us through everything. But Allah, in His infinite wisdom, knows that these attachments can never truly sustain the soul. So He allows moments that shake you, not to destroy you, but to awaken you. Not to push you away, but to pull you closer in a way you may have never experienced before. At your lowest, when your voice trembles and your eyes fill with tears, your connection becomes raw and real. There is no pretense, no formality, no distraction, just you and Allah. And in that sincerity, there is a closeness that cannot be achieved in times of ease. Your heart speaks in a way it never has before. Even if your lips are silent, your soul is making a call that reaches beyond words. You may feel weak, but in that weakness lies a powerful transformation. Because the moment you stop relying on everything else, you begin to rely on the one who never fails. The moment you feel like you cannot take another step, Allah carries you in ways you do not even realize. And the moment you think you are alone, you are actually being drawn into a closeness that is more intimate, more personal, and more meaningful than anything you have known before. There is a mercy of Allah that reaches beyond what the human eye can see and beyond what the human heart can immediately understand. A person may be sitting in silence, overwhelmed by their struggles, thinking that no one knows their pain, no one understands their situation, and no one is responding to their calls. But in reality, at the very moment when they feel most distant, they are often the closest to being held by the mercy of Allah in ways they cannot yet perceive. Allah does not delay out of neglect. Allah does not ignore the broken heart that calls upon Him in sincerity, even if that call is weak, even if it is only a whisper within the chest. There are moments when a person feels that nothing is changing, that their situation is stuck, that their prayers are not being answered, but what they do not realize is that the response of Allah is already unfolding in a form that is far deeper than immediate relief. Sometimes the mercy of Allah comes before the relief itself. It comes in the form of patience being placed within the heart, even when the circumstances remain the same. It comes in the form of strength that was not there yesterday, allowing a person to endure what they thought they could not. It comes in the form of a quiet reassurance deep inside the soul that prevents complete despair from taking over. A person may think they are waiting for Allah, but in reality, Allah has already reached them. The very ability to continue making dua, to continue holding on, to continue seeking meaning in the midst of difficulty is itself a sign of divine mercy already present within them. Because when Allah leaves a person to themselves completely, even hope disappears. But when Allah is near, even in hardship, hope remains alive in the most unexpected way. There are times when Allah delays outward change so that inward transformation can take place first. Because what is the benefit of removing a difficulty if the heart has not yet turned back? What is the benefit of opening doors if the soul has not yet learned dependence upon its Creator? So Allah, in His wisdom, prepares the heart before He changes the condition. A person might be asking for a solution, but Allah is granting them something greater in the meantime. He is granting them endurance that they did not know that they had. He is granting them reflection that brings them closer to Him. He is granting them a softness in the heart that only comes through brokenness and sincerity. And while they think they are still waiting for help, they are already being wrapped in layers of unseen assistance. Even the delay itself is a form of mercy, because within that delay, sins are being forgiven, ranks are being elevated, and dependence is being purified from reliance on creation. The soul begins to detach from false sources of comfort and slowly attaches itself to the only one who never fails, never forgets, and never abandons. There are moments when a person cannot even find the words to speak anymore. The pain becomes so deep that language feels weak and expression feels impossible. The heart is heavy, the throat is tight, and even in private, there is only silence. Yet in that silence, something is still being communicated. A form of dua that does not require sound, a call that does not need letters or sentences, but rises directly from the depth of the soul. Allah hears what is not spoken. He knows what is hidden in the chest long before it is ever brought to expression. A person may think that because they did not complete their dua, because they could not cry out fully, because they could not articulate their pain, that somehow their request was incomplete or unnoticed. But the mercy of Allah is not limited by human expression. It is not dependent on eloquence or volume. It reaches the most silent corners of the heart. There are times when a tear becomes a form of prayer, a tear that falls without explanation, without effort, without even understanding why it is there, carries within it a truth that words could never capture. And there are times when no tear even falls, yet the heart is still speaking. The silence itself becomes a language, and Allah understands it completely. A person may be sitting alone, feeling disconnected, thinking that their voice has no reach, that their situation is invisible. But in reality, those moments of silent struggle are among the most intimate forms of communication with the Creator, because there is no barrier between a silent heart and the one who created it. There is no need for translation, no need for structure, no need for perfection. The sincerity alone is enough. Sometimes a person feels too broken to speak, and in that very state their closeness becomes even deeper. Because when words fall away, only truth remains. There is no pretension, no performance, no attempt to sound correct or composed, just raw, unfiltered emotion rising from within. And that is something that carries immense weight in the presence of mercy. Even when a person thinks their dua is incomplete, Allah completes it in ways they cannot imagine. Even when they forget what they were going to ask for, Allah knows what they truly need. Even when their mind is distracted, their heart is still connected. And even when they feel nothing is being said, something is still being received. The silence of a believer is never wasted in the sight of Allah. Every unspoken plea, every hidden sorrow, every internal struggle is fully known and fully acknowledged. And sometimes the most powerful acceptance is not when everything is clearly said, but when nothing needs to be said at all, because the connection itself is already established beyond words. There are moments in life when a person begins to feel that everything is working against them. Doors close one after another, plans fall apart, relationships become difficult, and even the simplest tasks start to feel heavy. In such times, it is natural for the heart to feel confused and to ask why things are not going the way they were expected. But what appears as distance or rejection from life is never a sign of abandonment from Allah. Hardship is not a declaration that you have been left alone. It is not proof that you're forgotten or ignored. Rather, it is often a form of divine direction that is reshaping your path in ways you do not yet understand. Because not every road that seems easy is good for the soul, and not every delay is a punishment. Sometimes what is being taken away is not loss but protection. And what feels like restriction is actually guidance steering you away from something that would have harmed you deeply. A person may be trying to move in one direction with all their effort, but Allah knows what lies ahead on that path. There may be unseen dangers, hidden disappointments, or outcomes that would have broken the heart in ways far greater than the present struggle. So instead of allowing the person to reach that point, Allah gently redirects them. Even if that redirection comes through difficulty, confusion, or temporary pain, in those moments it may feel like everything is stopping. But in reality, something greater is being arranged. A delay is not a denial. A closed door is not the end of opportunity. It is often a shift from what you wanted to what you truly needed. And the wisdom behind that shift becomes clear only when time unfolds the bigger picture. There are also times when hardship serves to awaken the heart. A person who was too attached to comfort begins to reflect. A heart that was too dependent on people begins to turn back. A life that was moving without deep awareness is suddenly brought into moments of reflection and sincerity. And in that space of discomfort, a deeper understanding begins to grow. Even the confusion that comes with hardship has purpose, because it removes certainty in creation so that certainty in the Creator can be strengthened. When everything feels unstable around you, the soul starts to search for something unshakable. And that search leads it back to the one who never changes, never fails, and never abandons. A person may think they are being pushed away from ease, but in reality they are being brought closer to meaning. The outward struggle is shaping an inward awakening. The silence in response is not emptiness. It is preparation, and the delay in comfort is not rejection. It is redirection towards something more aligned with divine wisdom than personal expectation. There is a part of the human being that recognizes truth even before the mind is able to fully explain it. The soul carries a kind of awareness that is deeper than reasoning, deeper than logic, and deeper than emotion. It is that inner recognition that sometimes feels a pull towards something higher, even when everything outwardly seems uncertain. In moments of hardship, when confusion surrounds a person and clarity feels distant, the soul often begins to respond in ways that the mind cannot immediately interpret. A person may go through experiences where they feel disconnected, lost, or overwhelmed, yet deep within there is something that still responds to Allah. Even when they feel distant, even when they think they have drifted too far, there remains a subtle awareness that never fully disappears. That awareness is not created by circumstances. It is placed within the human being by design. It is part of the original connection between the creation and the Creator. When trials come, the mind often struggles first. It questions, it doubts, it searches for explanations, but the soul reacts differently. It becomes quieter, more reflective, more sensitive to meaning. In that stillness, it begins to remember what the noise of life had covered. It begins to recognize that beyond the confusion of events, there is a purpose unfolding that is not immediately visible. There are times when a person cannot understand what they are going through, but their soul still leans towards patience. It still leans towards prayer, even if weakly. It still leans towards hope, even if faintly. That leaning is not accidental. It is a sign that something deeper within them has not been lost, even if everything around them feels unstable. The soul's recognition of Allah is not always loud or expressive. Sometimes it is subtle. It appears in moments when a person finds themselves turning back in thought, even after trying to move away. It appears in moments of regret that lead to reflection, or in moments of silence where the heart suddenly feels drawn towards remembrance without being told. These inner movements are not random. They are signs of a connection that remains alive beneath layers of distraction and difficulty. Even when a person feels spiritually distant, that distance is often only on the surface. Beneath it, the soul is still aware. It still responds. It still knows where its origin lies. That is why in the most unexpected moments, a person may feel a sudden softness, a sudden tear, or a sudden thought that brings them back to remembrance. It is not the mind forcing it. It is the soul awakening. The recognition of Allah within the human being is not something that disappears with hardship. In fact, hardship often reveals it more clearly. When external supports weaken, internal awareness becomes stronger. When distractions fade, deeper truths begin to surface. And in that space, the soul's connection becomes more noticeable. Even if the person cannot fully articulate it, a person may think they are drifting through life without direction, but within them there is still a compass that always points back. That compass is not always followed immediately, but it never stops functioning. It continues to guide inwardly, reminding the heart in subtle ways, drawing it back in moments that seem small but carry deep significance. When a person looks back at the hardest moments of their life, they often realize something they could not see while they were in the middle of it. The moments they thought were the end were not the end at all. The moments they felt abandoned were actually moments of unseen closeness. And the times they were ready to give up were often the very moments where something deeper was already working within them. Before the breaking point, there is always a mercy that reaches the soul in ways it does not immediately recognize. Before the words stop, there is a silence that is already understood. Before the hardship is removed, there is a wisdom shaping the heart through it. Nothing is wasted in the sight of Allah. not even the tears that fall quietly in isolation, not even the thoughts that are never spoken, not even the patience that feels unnoticed. A person may think they are moving alone through their struggles, but they are being guided in ways that are far more precise than they can comprehend. What feels like delay is often protection. What feels like distance is often preparation. And what feels like silence is often the deepest form of care being extended to a heart that is being held even when it does not feel held. In the end, what remains is the understanding that no soul is ever truly left without direction, no heart is ever truly unheard, and no moment of sincerity is ever truly lost. Even in the lowest points, even in the quietest struggles, even in the thoughts that almost break a person, there is a connection that remains alive, shaping everything with a wisdom that only becomes clear when the heart looks back with understanding.